Hey everyone, this is Brett Wheelis with the Built on Truth podcast. Today our guest is Adam Rudd. We get into a little bit more about construction, about what makes a man. Adam will talk about the secret to working hard, if there is a secret, and he'll talk about his walk and the importance of living as a Christian and especially as a business owner and transitioning through '08 and how he stays steady in the midst of trials and through fire, and how he handles laborers and working and also being a dad, being a girl dad. So there's a lot in here for you and looking forward to this one. Adam, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, welcome. Tell the people what we're all about.
Well, let's say I started, I guess my real life story starts in Ventura County, born and raised, great family, great everything. I have parents that ran a Christian bookstore my entire life. My grandparents started it back after World War II, and so I grew up in the atmosphere of everything Christian, and I grew up in that perspective for sure. I think as I got older, I kind of tended to just walk away. It didn't grab me. It wasn't something I did on purpose. I just was enticed by everything in the world, like a lot of people do. And I ended up kind of quitting high school. I went back and did my, general ed and whatnot so I could graduate in the line. But I left halfway through the year so I could go work full time. And
what were you working on?
I was doing welding. So I took an ROP program in high school. I started welding and got a job welding, and making money, I guess, kind of was enjoyable for me. And allowed me a lot of freedoms, I think, so I wasn't so dependent upon others and my family and stuff like that. And that just kind of moved me, I think, more in the direction of my individual desires. And so I moved out when I was 18. I didn't make a lot of great choices, let's just say, and that continued, I think, all the way till about 22. I decided to leave Ventura County and move down to San Diego. I knew I needed to change my life. I just felt the pressure and everything coming down. I had what I call the eye-opening experience. I instead of going to church on Sundays, I used to go fishing every Sunday. That's what I did. And I went with my
saltwater, freshwater.
Saltwater, yeah. And I went with my best friend's dad at the time. And we went most Sundays we'd go out fishing, and it was just kind of like my little church on the water, my time to just enjoy, outside of work and hanging out with all the guys and whatnot. So I really enjoyed that. And then one Sunday I chipped a tooth when I was younger skiing, snow skiing, and I remember biting on a fig Newton that day, and my tooth broke off, right? And so now I'm toothless, sitting out in the water, not a big deal, but the rest of the day I got a little crazy. I remember, I think the day before, I bought a brand new fishing pole and reel. I was really proud of it, and I leaned it on the back of the boat to go grab a drink, and my buddy's dad says, "Hey, Rudd, the pelican just pulled your pole into the water." And I freaked out, and I ran to the back of the boat, and I just dove in the water with everything on, didn't even think about it, swimming down. And I just reached out and I grabbed, and I knew I felt fishing line, but I didn't know if it was mine. And about 100 yards of pulling on that fishing line, I finally got my pole back. So I was kind of stoked, but I was all wet. And we were out at Channel Islands that day, and my buddy's dad got hooked on some seaweed, and it came flinging back and hit me in the eye. So it took out one of my eyes. I didn't know how bad it was at the time, but it hit me. I couldn't see. I was throwing up because of all the trauma. I guess when you get an eye injury or something, like, you get nauseated and whatnot. And I remember we had to make it back to Ventura Harbor, and on the way back to Ventura Harbor, I had one eye. I'm pulling the plug in the back of the boat because we had an open bow 13-foot boat, which is not too smart but we loved fishing. And it's white capping as we're coming around the other side of the island, so waves are coming over. I'm pulling the plug so the boat like doesn't take on too much water. We get back to the harbor and immediately go to the hospital. And I just remember, like, I think for the next few months, you know, going through like having to sit up and sleep in bed, sitting up, so all the blood in my eye could drain. And I think from that point in my life, I mean, it definitely took my eye away, but for me, it was like my eye-opening experience, because it kind of, I feel like it was kind of like God's little, like humble moment, you know, like he kind of like I was a very confident, very, I don't know, arrogant, I guess, to a degree, you know, when I was young. And I hadn't had any real big issues outside of just problems that I chose to create in my own life. And I think after that, it kind of took some of that vanity away, you know, and it definitely, I would look down, you know, I wouldn't look people in the eye, you know. It kind of took some of that confidence away. And
can you see out of that eye?
No, I'm pretty blind in it. I mean, if I just close when everything's fuzzy. I see colors. It's all blended together.
And that was like from the retina, just like the seaweed hit you in the face.
The weight hit me in the eye on the top, and the hook went across the bottom of the eye.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was like my eye-opening experience in life, because it's really what I kind of feel like kind of brought me back to the Lord one day. And it took still years for that to like come to fruition, for sure. But ultimately, I didn't want to weld anymore, right? I was just like, I only have one eye. I don't need to like burn it up. So I wanted to change something. I didn't know how to change. And for me, I'm very, I dive into a lot of things like in life. So in order to get away from everything I was in at the time, I felt like I just needed to leave it all behind. And I did. So I moved down to San Diego, where I didn't know anybody. I bought a motorhome. I lived in that for like 3 years.
Let's go.
And, but I mean, you know, starting in construction, you know, I needed to work when I got down to San Diego. So eventually I got a job doing remodels and stuff with a company out in like La Jolla area. And I really enjoyed it. And eventually moved on to another company and so on. And I remember sitting in front of my boss one day. We were doing an interview. And he said, "Adam, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I see myself in your seat. You know, I want to be the boss someday."
Yeah.
And eventually it's just kind of where I got out from underneath like the company that I was working with, started my own business, and yeah, I kind of been doing that ever since, and I love it. It gives me a lot of freedom.
Man, so and this is in San Diego you're doing, and so that was home, was that framing, just builders?
No, I got more into the finished carpentry side.
Okay, finished carpentry.
So I love doing the finished carpentry side. The framing, not so much. Drywall, not so much, you know, little things, but I do enjoy finished carpentry a lot. That's really fun stuff for me. And I like running crews. I like running guys. I like being around men, which I gotta be honest, I feel like there's a lot of men in the field that aren't so manly, you know. It's like,
how so?
I feel like I grew up with, my dad gave me great work ethic. He always, you know, show up early, show up on time, work hard, you know. And I feel like that's something you have to, like, why am I telling grown men to like show up on time? You know, like, why am I telling them to like focus on your job, focus on work? You know, like this is the task. We are a team. Let's act as a team. Let's get the job done. You know, and it's hard because you also have to. I have to take care of just other people's lives in the process as well. You know, everybody's trying to work, make a living, and I'm trying to sit there and get a job done. That's my task. I forget about like, hey, they're people and they have lives, they have their own issues, they have their own problems and things like that. So that's a little difficult. But yeah.
Okay. So you started your own business, and so at this time, are you a Christian? So you talked about your eye-opening experience. When did it change for you?
By the time I started my company, I was a Christian. Yes. Okay. I was definitely a new Christian at this other church I started off, and I I did invite the Lord in when I was a kid, but like I said, I think I was kind of going through the motions. I was living in my motorhome, and I thought I was living the life. I was surfing every day. I had no real responsibilities. I started needing some money, so I started working for a company. I knew I was still doing a lot of partying and a lot of other things that I just were just normal to me, I guess, at that point in my life, and got in some trouble. And when that was over, I left the beach scene. I needed, like, I left Ventura County to move down to San Diego because I knew that something was changing. I needed to change. And then when I got down to San Diego, I just felt like I fell in the same group, just different scene, you know? So I met the same people as I knew up in Ventura County, just a different place. And my life didn't change, but I knew like something needed to change. So I isolated myself. I moved out to Mira Mesa, and I just kind of worked. I kind of dove into work. Like, let's get into work. Let's make some money. Let's see where life goes. I still didn't have any real plans. I was just kind of going with the flow, living my life. And I felt like something was the same in Mira Mesa too. It's like everywhere I went, my habits didn't change, my life didn't change until that lady basically said, Adam, you need Jesus in your life.
So she's like walked by you? What was the...
She's one of my neighbors.
Yep.
I helped put windows in her house. And she just would talk to me every once in a while. She was really nice, super cool. And I think I was just available that day. You know, yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what happened in that time of my life, other than I was just ready. I think God just kind of like allowed me to destroy so much of my life and just softened me up to the point to where I just needed something, you know. And I think I was available. So when she told me that I needed Jesus, I responded. And then from there, it kind of went into talking to my family, because they've been following the Lord their entire lives. They were always probably praying for me to change my life, and it finally started to come to fruition. And I remember talking with my brother-in-law in his garage, and him saying, you know, you could always ask Christ to reveal himself to you. Because I think that's what it kind of came down to. I was just kind of like, well, you know, is God real? Like, I mean, I believe in God. I would even say like I was a Christian, you know, all growing up and stuff, even though I had no real understanding of what that meant. I didn't know what the gospel was. I didn't know what the gospels were. I kind of just floated along and kind of told people what they wanted to hear when they wanted to hear it, because I wanted them to sit there and think I was something that I wasn't, you know. I wanted to think that I was a better person because I told people I was a Christian, but I wasn't, you know. I didn't know what that even meant. And I did. I went home that day, and they live up in Ventura. And I went home that day, and this is back in, I want to say like 2008. So like everything was tanking. The economy, everything was going downhill. And I was trying to make a decision, do I want to keep paying on my house or not? Like I had the money in the bank, I had great credit, everything, but it just became like a bad investment at that point. And so like, do you just continue to pay on it in hopes, or do I just let my house go? Work was still abundant, so I was working a ton. And I kind of had to make a choice, and I prayed. I remember thinking like, you know, God, reveal yourself to me, you know, and I'd like to sit there and see where do I need to go with my life from here, you know? I'm at a crossroads. I'm not married. I have no kids. I have nothing that I'm tied to right now other than this house. It's anchoring me down, and it's becoming more and more of an anchor in my life. And I think I just decided that I'm just going to stop paying for it. I started going to church at that time. Soon after, when that lady asked me to go, and I think from there my life started changing direction. I wasn't worried about the house anymore. I was working all the time. I had tons of work at the time. I was a new contractor.
When you started your new business?
Yeah, I started my business. I was about 30 years old, 29, 30, somewhere around there. And went off on my own, which was super scary. To rely on I think just yourself for everything, almost, and I wasn't relying on the Lord at the time because I didn't really know the Lord at the time. And I was really just relying on my own ability, my own resources, my own everything. And
what was going through your head in those first stages as far as like, oh crap, I'm doing this, especially in mid 2008?
Yeah, I think I let the rhetoric of just, where everybody else was feeling the pain of things, of finances and everything, kind of get in my head. Even though I was working all the time, I had more money in my bank account at the time than I ever had in the past. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had a lot going for me, but I was still scared. I didn't understand why, other than like, oh, where am I going to get work? But I had a year's worth of work lined up. But I've never seen anything. I don't remember like the Reagan years or whatever years everybody likes to talk about in the past of bad times. I was a kid, and I think I was just kind of. I had a house, I had responsibilities, I had a business now, so I'm just trying to figure a lot of things out in my own life. I'm just starting to go to church. I'm probably at that point just getting frustrated going to that church because they weren't really preaching any of the word. Mm-hmm. I was very like, hey, we're gonna read 2 verses and then I'm gonna tell you how I feel about kind of stuff, and I'd get real frustrated, and that's kind of where my life took a transition. I think where I started really growing was when I got to Barabbas Road Church, where I still attend today. And I just heard the pastor at the time. I was getting to know people, and I just heard him preach the word. And that's it. The word saved my life.
Yep.
So.
Amen.
Yeah.
So what's your Bible reading plan? Like, what would you recommend for folks listening to it who might not read the Bible very often?
I think for me, I started going through the Gospels. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, like, I didn't realize exactly what they were. At the time, I was going to that other church, and I would just open my Bible and start reading. I didn't really know what to start. I didn't have any plan. I didn't have any understanding or goal. I knew I needed something. So when I heard, my pastor preach the word, it kind of opened me up, and I was just like, whoa, that's amazing. Like he's just going like through the Bible, word by word, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. And I remember I was going out with this girl at the time, and she's like, well, why don't you start in Matthew? The beginning of the New Testament. Start in Matthew and go through the Gospels. Well, I did. I started doing that. And after I got to maybe Luke, I felt like I was lost again all of a sudden. And I told her, I was like, hey, like, I feel like I've already read this, like what's the deal? Like, I'm reading the same story again. And she's like, yeah, that's the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You're going through the gospels. You're learning, the testimony of Christ here. And I didn't understand, it didn't make sense to me. I'm sitting there going like, why am I reading like all these guys' perspective on this, character? And I knew who Jesus was. But it didn't really hit me, like the depth, the theology in it all and everything else. It didn't strike me at first. And so she just continued to encourage me to keep reading. I kept reading and reading. I kept going to church. I think Pastor Matt was talking about just a lot of theology. I think he started a class soon after. I think it used to be called like Skeptics Corner or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Way back when in the day.
He'd argue with skeptics.
Yeah. And it was just, I tried to like get involved with just people from church. I was going to a Bible study. This is before like a lot of the guys ever got married. They're all married with kids now. And we just were able to, I used to go Frisbee golfing and do little things here and there. It was a good time. And it was around like some young guys my age, a lot more solid in their walk and faith than I was at the time, and I really desired that growth.
Yeah, amen. A lot better than the crew that you were running with, the party scene at the beach,
absolutely,
things like that. So you're going to this great church, you're reading the Gospels, you're like, man, I'm reading the same story over and over and over, and transitioning from there. How was your? I want to phrase this in a way that is applicable, because I feel like so many times as we talk about reading the Bibles is almost like a passive thing. It's like, it's this thing you do, it's this thing you read. However, we know the word to be a living and active sword. And especially with a man with his own business, in the throes, you have '08, you have all sorts of chaos and the climate around you. And truly the source of your strength and your source of your guidance is the word, the truth. You're going forward. So how did that carry forward for you for years to follow? And phrasing all this with your walk as a Christian, how'd that develop?
I think even though the church that I left, I didn't enjoy the pastoralship or anything else. I got involved in the ministry side. We would go and fix people's houses or, trim bushes and whatnot. And I got involved in a Bible study. And one of the guys in the Bible study, just because the church wasn't, I feel like, very solid, there were some good people there, and I met this guy in my Bible study. He was telling me about
This is the old church or Barabbas?
The old church, yeah. And this kind of like, there's a couple things I think in scripture that have really just stayed with me over the years. And one was like, God tells us to challenge him, right? He tests me on this. And the only thing he tells us to test us on is tithing. Right?
Tithing, yep.
And I think, who doesn't like their money? I love my money. I don't want to give it away. But at the same time, I didn't know how to trust God. I didn't know how to really submit, And I think the tithing aspect of it was like, well, I'm making money. I want to tithe, but how do I do this, or what feels right, or how much, and things like that. So I think the tithing part was like a beginning to my trust.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, totally. And
because it's not our money, it's God's money.
Right. And it took me a while to learn that. I'm still learning that, but I do it faithfully because it's like, hey, test me on this. And the way I look at it is like I do with other men, same thing. It's just like you challenge each other, and with God, I wanted to do the same thing. It's like, you're going to tell me to test you. Well, I'm going to test you. So it's your responsibility now to provide. And he has.
Yeah.
He's definitely been faithful over the years. I have work I don't look for. I work for a lot of the same people. I have great clients. I have everything when it comes to work. I literally, I feel like I don't even know how I have a business. I don't do anything. I don't look for it. I don't advertise for it. I have no social media.
Yep.
I go to church and I go home and I work and I have kids and I go to sports, but I don't do anything, and it's still there. So to me, it's just the tithing aspect has just solidified my faith and just my admiration, for God.
Yeah,
for sure. And then I think Timothy, 1 Timothy 1, I think, talks about Paul talks about being like a sinner and one of the worst, and I feel like that one's always stuck with me because I feel like I've been there. I've lived that life, Yeah. And I was one of the worst, and now my life's changed because of that. Like, God's opened my eyes. Like, everything good in my life literally has come from Christ, And I think I sometimes get emotional on it because it's like it's such a change in my life.
Truly,
So. And
and that's, as you saw how bad it was and how bad it could have been.
Absolutely.
Life, and then how. And Christ has given you everything, and he didn't have to.
Absolutely.
There's a number of things that you mentioned there, Adam, and I want to reflect on because I'm remembering we had a similar walk as far as starting out in San Diego, going to not watered down churches.
Sure.
Which I think is if you're listening to this, very much make it a point to go to a church that preaches the Bible.
Absolutely.
Make sure it's not a bunch of feel-good stories. It's not built on emotion. We'll get into, because you work construction, and when people think of, at least when I think of construction, you think of like, man, they work with their hands.
Sure.
They build.
Yeah.
Like Jesus was a carpenter.
Yeah.
That's a.
I know. Man. I get that a lot.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm referencing when going to this not so great church, this watered down church. I was at a point where I had I got fired from a job. I wasn't working at the time, and I had $20. I had almost zero money in my bank account.
Yeah.
Just paid rent, and I knew that, and I was a Christian at the time, and I knew that it wasn't my money, it was God's money, and to trust Him in regards to trust Him with everything. It's like, well, I'm going to put my
Money where your mouth is.
That was something where my dad taught me well, and it's all right. Like, is this legitimate? And so, really, and God, from that point, it's in the book of Malachi. It says, "Test me in this," as far as the tithing.
Mm-hmm.
However, the giving that $20, the Lord has never put me to shame. He's never put you to shame.
Yep.
We're business owners. We're sitting here and you're like, what the heck? How am I still in business? Especially being when you're not gifted with marketing and you're not gifted with so many of these other qualities that almost seem necessary to survive as a business owner in this landscape. And to be sitting here, to be able to put food on the table for our families is all a testament to God's provision and God's glory, which is amazing. So talk to us a little bit about, as far as construction. So you mentioned like these guys, like you have to tell grown men to do a job when you're like, I can't believe I'm having to tell them this. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about as far as like what being an actual Christian man is like, and then like the facade of such a thing.
I think there's still a struggle there for me, I think, because I have 2 daughters now. And
girl dad.
Yeah, girl dad, which I love. But I think, I see how I teach my daughters, and the things, they're kids. So like from babies to now, and they're 13 and 14 years old now. And I have to sit there and tell them things or remind them of things. Or like, hey, why are we showing up so early, Dad? Because like if you're showing up on time, you're already late, right? Like you got to show up early so you can start doing things on time. And that's the way I was raised. That's the way I was growing up. I'm very, I'm kind of like, I always tell my daughters, I'm like a time Nazi because I'm just like, you had to be on time. You have to be, there's no excuse, and especially like people that are consistently late. I hate it. Like it tears me up. I get so angry, and it's so frustrating because time is one of the things you can never get back in life. You can't get it. You can't buy it. It's just when it's gone, it's gone, and I think that's where I find it's very disrespectful or very respectful, and so like today, I showed up an hour early, right? Because I just want to make sure like I'm on time, like respecting other people's lives and stuff. So when I have to sit there and talk to guys and we say, hey, we're starting work at 7:00 and you're showing up at 7:00. Well, you're not starting at 7:00, right? So does that mean like now like you show up at 7:00, you're starting at 7:15? Well, do I take 15 minutes off of pay every day for you during the week? You can't do, there's so many legalities with those kinds of things. And I'm trying to help these men become accountable just in their own lives. And they're not, like my employees are not Christian men, some of them like the idea of God, but they're not Christians. And I think Christianity, my walk, is so much more than yes, read your Bible, absolutely. Learn about the theology, learn about all these things that you possibly can so you can just have a better relationship in Christ, so you can share the gospel and everything else. But it starts, I feel like, also in the little daily things, like being on time. That's not a Christian thing. It's not a Christian concept. It's a respectful concept, and teaching them to do those things and work hard. Like you're not here to sit there and make friends and talk to everybody.
What separates hard work from not hard work, from laziness? For you,
I would say that's a good question. I would say, what do I want in life? Like, what's my desire in my life, especially in the moment? But like, ultimately, I don't have a business and I don't have employees and everything else so that I can make them happy and create a neat life for them. That's not my goal. It has nothing to do with any of it. It's really to make a living for myself and my family, and that comes first. So what do I need? How am I going to get it? What can I offer and provide for my family? That's my first and foremost thought. So like when I go to a job, I'm sitting there going like, well, I don't want to spend all day here, but I want to make it efficient and make the most I can so I can bring home and provide the best I can, right? And spend the most time at home with my kids or doing the things that I want out of life, So job is just, and work is just a means to me having more time to do what it is that I want to do. Okay. Ultimately. Yeah.
So when one of your guys on your crew, like, how do you separate, like, that guy's a good worker or that guy's a bad worker?
I think, like anybody else does with people in their lives, we prioritize the people that we admire or look up to, or we, like we use different people even in our churches for different things in life, right? We might do dinner with one, we might play sports with another, like things like that. So with the guys, I kind of sit there and go like, okay, what's his benefit, to me and the business and everything else. One guy might be a thinker, right? And he might be able to understand what it is that I desire for a project. He might be able to sit there and see things the way I see things, and be task orientated, where he can manage things to get things done in the manner that I'd like. Where some guys, they show up to work and you can give them a list and you tell them where to start, and if they're working on any of those subjects, they feel like they're still doing their job and just working because they don't understand the process, right? And I'm looking at a job, like before I even start a job, I'm starting thinking like, I can see this job from beginning to end. I already see the whole process. Like in my mind, I see the way things working. And so when guys are just there to show up, do a job so they can go home, so they can live their life and provide and do things for their family, well, they become less valuable to me in a way, because they're just there with the intent of making money, but not really investing anything into the business or the job, which I understand to a degree. I mean, I've worked for other people, but if you can't even follow the rules of if I'm going to pay you to do a job, then do it how I tell you to do it, kind of thing, and show up on time. Show up 10 minutes early. Like, I mean, if you're going to show up at 7:00 every day and we're starting at 7. Well, you're already 10 minutes late. You're not set up and getting ready to work. And the people that, or you're cleaning up too early so that you can just talk for the last 10 minutes. Well, I mean, all those little things of time, I mean, you got to take as an employer into consideration, like how much value does this person bring to the company? So if somebody's going to invest their time or make that sacrifice, you pay them more, right? I mean, it's natural, it makes sense. Some people get underpaid until they're ready to ask for more sometimes, so it's also like, be a man, step up.
As far as asking for pay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was growing up, I always had jobs and I always asked for more. I tried to work the hardest too. I wanted to be the best. Like, I would work in a welding shop, and I had an old boss that sat there and told me if I could beat him building a truss, that I would get a raise. So I did. And then I challenged him. I said, all right, let's do the truss build. And he didn't want to do it. But then he didn't want to pay me anymore. So I quit that next day. And in 2 weeks, I found another job and moved on. So I think it's just like, that's where I learned how to do things and account for myself. And I want other guys to do some of the same. And I get that some people are just worker bees, right? They're there to do a job. They're not there to challenge themselves. They don't want any more. They just want to survive. And then you see the other guys out there that are really pushing, they want something. And then they get to a point where it's just like, either you're going to go out on your own and do your own thing because you're ready for it, or this is what I'm willing to pay you. This is where you're at. I think that speaks volumes as far as just what men set like as goals in their life and stuff.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about the folks that you work with now, so your business now and the landscape of it. And when we're very blessed, the clients that you have, and how did you come across these clients? How did you, because we mentioned ambition, you mentioned ambition earlier, and so it's something I want to talk about as far as like being a business owner, balancing your ambition as a Christian, your clients now. Talk to us about the state of affairs now.
Sure. When I went out on my own, I started doing sunrooms. A buddy of mine hooked me up on these sunrooms. They kind of brought the clients to me. I would just schedule them in, and as I was doing these sunrooms, I was loving it. It was really fun. It was very challenging. I didn't even know what I was doing on some of them, but I figured it out. And working and making money and everything was very important to me. Like, I definitely wanted to succeed. Right. I didn't know all about how I was going to succeed, but I knew I was going to, because I had already made up my mind. I'm going to make this. I'm going to make it work. This is all I got. I'm not going to go back and work for somebody else. And so I started off on sunrooms. In the trade, you just kind of meet people along the way. I started work for another huge, one of the biggest remodelers here in San Diego. And I was basically just hired on time and material. So when they called me, I'd go out there. I still got to charge my same rate, but I didn't have to look for the clients. I worked for their clients. I got a markup on all my materials and charged as a contractor, and they paid every 2 weeks. So it almost became like a consistent job, but I was working for myself, so I could say no. I could work my own time. As long as I got the job done, I got paid, kind of thing. And I started doing very well at that. And I think as that progressed, then that company's like, oh, well, we don't want to do the small stuff. Hey, call Adam. Hey, call Adam. Hey, call Adam. So then they're starting to dish more work over to me, and that's how my business perpetually just kind of grew. And from there, they almost did themselves a disfavor, because at times I'd have to sit there and say, no, I'm doing one of my own projects now. I can't come do this work for you, kind of thing. Yeah. And that's kind of where it grew. And I did all the work myself. So they weren't like big jobs, but they were like, I'd have cabinetry or finish work or doors or windows or something. And I just do a lot of the work myself. And then when it came down to like, hey, I got my first bathroom. Now I got to do a shower on my own. Well, I don't have a tile guy. I don't have this. I don't have that. I knew guys that did it, but they weren't like my employees, you know? And that's where I had to search out like, okay, how do I do an employee thing? Well, there's a lot of legalities that come to do with having people that work for you. And it's still tough. California's a tough state for all those things. And I'm probably not 100% legit on all of it. You know, I can't keep up. I don't have a secretary. I don't want one. I definitely like being in charge of everything, every aspect of the business. I've had opportunities to grow, but I always kind of like the small. I like the work. I like the business. So I got all the insurances to cover guys and started taking guys on. And from there, we've just stayed busy. But it's a lot of word of mouth. I've never advertised. Yep. I've never looked for work.
What's the company?
Rudd Design.
Rudd Design?
Yeah, Rudd Design.
Rudd Design. This episode brought to you by Rudd Design. First marketing.
Yeah, it's the first one, right? I don't do any social media.
Yeah.
I have a laptop, or not even a laptop, the iPads. I have an iPad. If that thing can't do it, it doesn't get done. and that goes from paper to iPad, so it takes me a long time.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. So do you have employees now, or is it just?
I do. Yeah, I have about 5 employees now, plus myself. I do hire myself out to do certain things that I'll go set doors or something. I love doing the work. I do. I just, being a dad to 2 daughters and running a business and a lot of other things just going on. And my daughters, like one of them just started high school. It's driving me nuts. I had to stay at school for 6 hours one day just watching volleyball. Now I loved it, but I didn't get to watch her play for 6 hours. Yeah. We had to be there for 6 hours, you know, and that's sometimes tough. So now I'm relying on my employees more and more to get done what I'm asking them to do so that I can live the life that I want. Mm-hmm. But I've been working since in the field since I was 17. That's 30 years. Yeah. You know, I'm not even close to retirement yet. Yeah. You know, I don't think I'll ever retire, but it'd be nice to not to have to work maybe someday. Mm-hmm. So I've been in the field for 30 years, or I've been in the field less than 30 years, but I mean, I worked in the field for 20 something years, and I feel like I've sacrificed and put a lot into the business. I've worked so hard, and I feel like I've paid my dues. I'm reaping some of the benefits today because of what I've been able to build and put together. And like I said, like God's put this whole thing into plan. I'm just trying to maintain what he's given me, you know, and that's really what it comes down to, because I don't even know how it works. And somebody says, even Pastor Matt one time, he said something about, oh, you know, you've got a good business and this and that. I'm like, no, I don't, dude. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing half the time, you know, but it works. I don't know how it works. I couldn't tell you. It's like kind of like when you're raising a teenager and, you know, they go from babies to teenagers and you're like, wait, how'd that happen? Like, what did I do? I don't even remember doing that, you know, like, but you're 14 now and you're kind of responsible. This is cool. It's kind of like the same thing with my business. It's there. I don't even fully understand how it works.
That's amazing.
But I love it.
You're like the Rain Man of construction.
Maybe. I love what I do. And like I said, I love working hard, and I love getting out there. I love getting up at 4 a.m.
Amen. Hey, 4 in the morning club. Nice.
Yeah, I always thought like, man, if church would start a Bible study at 4 a.m, I think I could do that.
We could do it. We could start one.
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see. Maybe that'll start.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe this is the beginning.
That's it. Yeah. That's a red design.
Yeah.
So Adam, how do you balance being a dad, being a business owner in the construction field? How do you balance those two things?
Again, that's another conundrum. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wake up and I just do.
Yeah.
I'm not lazy. I don't want to do nothing. Like I said, I like work. I like challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I guess there's other sacrifices, where I don't slow down to take the time with some people, and I think that's sometimes difficult when a lot of people need time, and that's not my thing. I'm kind of like, well, when I'm done, I'm just gonna eat dinner and go to bed, but there's schoolwork to do, or there's something else in my daughter's lives that needs some attention, or I got to schedule work for tomorrow so I can keep the guys busy, which are relying on me so that they can have their own lives as well. It's how does it all work? I think I don't sleep a lot. I don't think I naturally sleep a lot.
What time you go to bed?
My niece told me I was in bed before 8 o'clock, and that was like 2 days ago.
Okay, so 8, wake up at 4?
3, 2, I've been up at 2 a.m. I just wake up,
Yeah.
I don't know. I sleep when I'm tired, and I wake up, or I'm awake when I'm not.
Do you set an alarm?
No.
You don't set an alarm?
No.
You've never set an alarm?
I used to. I mean, today I don't need one. If I'm in bed at 8 o'clock, and I have a thought in my head of, hey, I got to be here at this time. Well, I'll be up.
That's incredible.
Or I just don't sleep much, and I'm
yeah.
But sometimes I'll wake up 2 hours before I have to go somewhere, And
yeah.
But it's all right.
Yeah.
A lot of coffee. Yeah, a lot of work. But I love it. I do. It's enjoyable for me to be able to spend the time with my daughters.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to count on guys, And like I said, I mean, I know, like I say, sometimes these grown men they're worse than kids. Like at least my daughters are retaining information, but I'm not these parents. I'm not these grown men's dads, right? I don't know how they were all raised and what they were taught and what they're not. And so I do have high expectations for my kids because I've raised them. I know what they know. I know what I've told them. And with these men, like we all come with different issues and stuff. So trying to be sensitive. I mean, I'm 48 now, so I've tried to learn to be more empathetic, sympathetic. Yep. Probably don't use those words correctly all the time, but I've tried to and care more about things, and they're not just dollar signs, they're not just people that make me money, they're people.
Yeah.
And I need to spend that time with them and be patient with them to a degree, right? I mean, to a degree, because some men just need to man up. I mean, I've told one of my workers that he's not allowed to come talk to me about his feelings because I don't want to hear about it. I mean, I'm not here for that. I told him to go home and talk to your wife about it. I don't want to hear it, because we're here to get something done. And sometimes I think a man needs to compartmentalize or whatever. Compartmentalize.
Yeah.
There you go.
Amen.
And just kind of like, be strong enough to put those away. It's not we're not emotionless people, but it's knowing where to put some of that emotion sometimes so we can do the stuff that men need to do to get things done. Right. We're good at that kind of stuff,
Thousands of years ago, even 50 years ago, hundreds of years ago, they were not talking about their feelings in the trenches in World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
When everything, the Industrial Revolution, all this stuff, they were getting things done.
They were getting stuff done, and I think we've lost that today.
People love mental health. People talk about mental health, and it's like, where we stand on that.
That's loaded. I have no empathy and no sympathy for most people, let alone the people that have mental issues. And I'm not talking like people that actually have them. I'm just I'm talking about all this, the movement today of, how can we make weaker men?
It sounds like an excuse.
Oh, it's not just an
excuse.
Sorry, I didn't mean to touch my mic. I get frustrated because I am teaching my daughters to be tougher than a lot of these men out there today.
Yeah.
And I've told my daughters from day one, like, hey, if you're going to cry, you go to your room and you do it quietly because it's not my fault and not my problem. I shouldn't have to listen to all that. It's not fair. So if I can sit there and tell my daughters this, and they're grown up to be very strong, good women, what else? How more sympathetic can I be to a man, when I expect so much more out of like his production or just the way he chooses to live his life. I think in today's world, like men, they show up with tools and they're brand new, and because they have tools, they think they're carpenters, So I go like, just because you have tools doesn't mean you know how to use them,
Poor carpenter blames his tools.
Yeah, it's frustrating, I think. So when it comes to men, I think, unfortunately, society's definitely, heard it a lot,
Truly.
And I think a lot of the guys, and since the whole, I call it the fear pandemic, COVID.
Yeah.
I feel like ever since then, people want to make more and work less.
And the entitlement of that is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, so I definitely have that workmanship to me. Let's go, let's get it done. There is no excuse as to why it can't be done. And I love challenges. I take jobs on that nobody else wants to because it's risky, And it's not just the reward that's enticing, right? It's the challenge of
conquering.
Yeah, and going from welding to remodeling and being so diverse in the field of construction, I'm able to put a lot of different things together, think outside the box. I really enjoy that part of it.
What a gift that God gave you, that past experience with welding, and all these areas of construction where you're able to now sit here and make a living for your family and to be able to guide these men and to have this business. I reflect on that constantly, daily, every morning, thinking about my drive to work at 4:30.
Yeah,
is always consisting of I drive past an exit that I used to work at, and numerous exits where I used to work for different jobs, and all these things that God used to prepare me and to put me in this position where I'm able to have a business, which I'm still, how am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah, how's it work for you?
It's just, with the clients and everything, it's a lot of referral.
Mm-hmm.
If you're actually good and you get people results and they'll tell other people about you, your referral. I'm not good at marketing. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to hone my craft, so to speak. That's an essential element of the fitness perspective. However, I am here by God's grace. Truly, there's been I've had a number of situations with various type of clientele, type of contract situations. I think when I started out and I had 2 training jobs, and so I worked 80 hours a week, which is unheard of because people get into the training fitness industry for the lifestyle, which is usually like you're working 20, 30 hours a week.
Convenience of times and everything.
Yeah, convenience of times and things, and you're spending your life doing fitness stuff. But I understood an early point where if I want to be successful in this field, I need to put my head down and I need to reduce the learning curve, which is quite steep when you actually want to be good at what you do.
Sure.
So being able to, the first year, 6 months to a year, putting in that amount of time with clients from a corporate wellness perspective, and learning all these different schools of thought, because training in and of itself, the human body, it's unfortunately gotten to the point where health is very touchy-feely, and you can get kind of psychosomatic about it. However, the nuts and bolts of it, the simplicity of it, there's a lot of different fundamental movement components, resistance training, fascia release, stretching, all those things that have the balance of that. However, very blessed. I'm only here because of God, and so
absolutely,
yeah. So Adam, to wrapping up, if you were to tell a Christian man who's getting into the construction industry, what would be your advice to them?
Be ready to work hard. Work hard for yourself. Work hard because it's what you desire and that's what you want to do. If you're not ready to work hard, don't do it. Find something else to do. There's plenty of things out there to do that you don't have to work as hard, but you're working in the sun, you're working. I don't work when it rains. I'll be honest. I just don't. And if it's raining, I sometimes don't even want to leave my house. I know it only rains like 2 days here, but those 2 days I'm at home. No, it's hard work, so be prepared for the hard work. The investment, you're going to make some money when you're first starting off. You're going to want to spend that on something. Maybe it's a new truck or whatever, but invest in the tools. The tools are what make you the money. Your tools will determine what you're able to get into and do and whatnot. Find the people that are, good at what they do. Strive to get to a point to where you can watch and learn from people that have been in the trade a long time. Absolutely, just listen to what they say. It's okay to sit there and do things differently. I think when you get to a point of the theory of whatever it is that you're kind of trying to do, like how to set a door. There's many different ways to set a door, but learn from somebody who knows how to set a door correctly, and then from there you might sit there and cut little things off because, hey, you can do it a different way. It's faster, it's more efficient, or it just works better for you. So don't get so stuck on, I think, doing everything one way. There's many ways to do many things. And then always strive to sit there and figure out how you can start your own business. You can make a good living, I think, in the construction field in many different ways, right? I didn't go to college, so I wasn't going to get into some company where I was going to start running, some kind of network or something with other people. I just went directly into the trade and started working. So my benefit came with my hands-on experience, the actual work itself and the desire to work hard. And then as I got older and got my desire to provide for a family one day. So those were all my goals that I set, I think, somewhere along the line. So if you're starting off, absolutely just be ready to work hard. I think that's what it takes. And that's unfortunate that not a lot of people even know what that means today. I come across guys that they tell me they're working hard, and it blows me away. How can you tell somebody you're not a hard worker? Sometimes I tell some guys, like, you're not a hustler, you're not a hustler, you don't hustle, and that's a nice way to say, like, you don't work hard, but maybe they're good at something else, you know what I mean? So maybe they're a thinker and they can sit there and process and how to get certain things done. But your pay is always going to be relative on how you benefit whatever company you're working for.
Truly.
Whether that's thinking, whether that's working, whether that's thinking ahead and figuring out what's going to need to be done next or something. Everybody has a different value. You don't just pay somebody in the construction field like one wage. You're not like, hey, you all started off, you're all going to make $20 an hour, but like, what if somebody's not worth $20 an hour? Or what if somebody's worth more than $20 an hour? And I think the most I pay a guy is $42 an hour, and I sit there and go, like, that's a lot of money, right? And for somebody who's not going to college, been in the trade for a long time by that point, if you're going to do better and make more, but at the same time, like, where is it limited? I think after that, a person has to sit there and say, hey, you know what, this is as far as I can go working for a company or working in a construction, any kind of field working for somebody. Now I have to take the next step and go out on my own. If I want to make those bigger dollars, then I got to figure out how to do that. And that's where the business side starts coming in, and you start thinking, like, hey, I'm gonna start running a crew. I'm gonna start having all these guys work. Now I don't have to make as much. If I have one employee, I'm gonna take home $20 an hour from this guy. I'm gonna take this from this guy, this from this guy. Then you start putting that business plan together. You got to start thinking that way too, and then keeping them all in order so that you can sit there and be the most efficient and ultimately make the profit that you desire.
Yep.
I think, that's business 101 probably.
Yeah.
So
how critical is your Bible reading to success as a man, as a Christian business owner?
So I would say I should definitely do a better job at reading my Bible on a more consistent basis. I like a lot of the, so I love like the apology and theology and apologetics class that Matt does on Tuesday nights. So I love that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I think Got Questions is one of my favorite websites.
Yep.
I reference it a lot. And then where my biggest Bible reading comes in is where I like a subject of something like I'm interested in, or I get in a conversation about something and I don't know enough about it. So then I'll go back and read that portion of the Bible. So it's not always for me. I'm going to start here and just read through this. I kind of jump around a lot based on maybe just different things that happen in my life. I read a lot of theology, just settings and stuff, because it helps me, I guess, understand some of the deeper relationship value in there. And I'll talk to, be able to share the gospel with different people better, I think. So as far as just straight reading my Bible straight out, I don't consistently read steadily. I just read throughout Scripture because I'm always into something, I think. I'm always trying to learn about different things. Like I'll get stuck on Calvinism. It's just like, oh, why is Calvinism important? Or is it important? Or Arminianist or something like that. So then I'll go back through it and start learning like why, and I'll start reading a bunch of scripture on Calvinism. Or things like that, or even just like marriage and stuff like that. So I'll like, hey, I'm interested, like, am I doing the right thing? So I'll go start researching all the verses and whatnot on marriage, or raising my kids. How am I supposed to raise my kids? So I'll start going back through scripture and reading like those things. And and the fun one with the kids is I can do that with my kids too, you know? So I can go back and say like, well, this is why I choose to do these things. This is why I ask you to honor me. This is why I ask you to respect like the decisions that I've made in my life. We pray for your hearts and minds all the time. This is why we're doing these things, even with the guys at work, it gives me an opportunity to sit there and bring things up. Like if there's like drinking or something, like this is like where you need to sit there and be more accountable, not just because I believe that, but because, scripture obviously says these things. And my guys they're not like I said, they're not Christian, but they're versed in they understand. Like a lot of people have like a concept of God, I think, in different ways, or biblical references and stuff. And it's, I'm able to sit there and bring certain things up. And then I think as a Christian, we have no excuse because we have these phones these days and they have everything on them, right? So I have this Bible app on there and I can pull things up on there and I can sit there and read. So I'll sit there and share some things with the guys, because ultimately I tell them all the time, they need to go to church. You need to go to church, I tell people that go to other churches to stop going to their church and come to Barabbas Road. Because it's truly where I got saved. Yep. And it's truly where I feel like, I think I'm convicted. I'm held accountable. The men that go to Barabbas Road, I just feel like is just, it's solid.
Yep. Talk to me about the men, Barabbas versus the Facade of Men, the difference.
And I think this is like when you talk about like construction guys, oh, you're the men, like you're manly men kind of thing, but we're all tools, for Christ in one way or another. We're all part of the body. We're all different. And I think when I became a Christian, I think I took the time to get to know people differently than just from my own perception growing up kind of thing, and I think I didn't have a lot of respect for certain types of people, I think, growing up, just because I didn't think that was manly or something, you know what I mean? And I think going to Barabbas Road, I have met a slew of different types of men. And I sit there and I go like, man, like these are real men, like they're reading their Bibles, or maybe they got their own system of how they choose to do so.
But it's prevalent in their lives.
It's something important in their life. They seek it out. Absolutely. They seek the word one way or another. And one of the big things was just like watching how the men treat their women,
Yeah.
That I think is that's huge. That's amazing. And I think watching like how they love their wives, where I think growing up I didn't really, like, my dad was always loving to my mom. My brother-in-law is always loving to my sister, and vice, and whatnot. But I just feel like in general public and stuff, and because I left the home early because I didn't want a lot of that in my life. I think I learned a lot of bad habits along the way. So when I started going to Barabbas Road and getting in touch with other men that are literally like they're serving their wives, you know, or they put their wives first, you know.
And that is different, important differentiation from being your wife's running the show to serving your wife.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think when I was younger, it was just like, well, I'm going to be the man, you know, like, and I sit there and I see like the Christian men that I see struggling in their marriages today are the ones that want to be the men. And it's ironic because they're the least manly in my eyes because they're literally destroying their relationships, you know?
Yep.
And I think, so I think that's a big thing for me is watching the men at church and how they handle their kids, their wives and things like that. And then I think there's not the, like you go to church and you have all these manly men. You got like you were saying earlier, like Navy SEALs, you got contractors, you got doctors, you got lawyers. Well, I don't know. I don't think we have any lawyers.
We got a few lawyers. Yeah.
Do we?
Yeah, some accountants. You got accountants.
Okay, accountants, you know, trainers and whatnot. But you got like a whole slew of like just different types of men doing different things. And you know, I sit there and I see some of the men at church. They're just the nicest people. I remember going to Barabbas Road and just starting off and thinking like I was doing something wrong in my life, or I just didn't understand something, because I felt like a lot of these guys are just so nice, you know, and I don't think I've ever felt like I'm just that nice guy, you know. I still don't. I mean, I'll go out of my way to help anybody, and I'll try and help people out however I can. Mine's more of a physical kind of help. Yeah. I have less patience with the whole emotion stuff. I don't do. It's just not my strong suit, you know. Yeah. And talking to some of these other guys, and they still go to church and stuff, and I love them because they're the nicest guys. Yeah. And it really is convicting for me to sit there and try and be more loving, you know. And I think when a man can really, you know, be comfortable with his manliness, where he has to be a man and make certain decisions. Being a man isn't being tough, you know. Being a man, swinging a hammer, you know, that's not what makes me a man. Being a man is getting up each day and choosing to do the right thing, you know. And it's not a single action, it's a consistency. And I think that's where I see like I have a lot of respect for the guys at church, for sure. That's where I see like men and boys turning into men, you know. Serving each other, talking with each other. I think that's where I get my sense of manliness from, for sure.
Yeah, amen. Couldn't agree more. We're not men because we're doing some sort of job or holding some sort of position, but we're truly men defined by our actions and ultimately living out. Jesus was the manliest man of all,
right?
And he was a carpenter.
He was.
What a great Bible gives us great examples of what masculinity should be. But awesome, Adam, and thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here.
Hope I didn't bore you too much.
Oh, that was fantastic.